Hello and welcome to 4000 and Counting. I'm Watty and today I'm joined by Mr. Sam Cheema for appearance number two. Cheems, welcome back to 4000 and Counting, buddy. How's life stateside?
Cheers, mate. Yeah, no, it's good. I was back in England on the weekend there to help out at Guildford a little bit and Streatham, but yeah, it's good. Life's all right. Hockey season's in the full swing as always.
So when you're coming over and you're working with these teams, what sort of stuff are you doing with the clubs? Is it more club based? Is it then getting into work with the individuals and just what's the kind of the
Well,
overview of what you've been doing?
Streatham was fun because all those boys I played with. So as
Yeah,
I paint JJ Pitchley, George, and I just said to Paints, like, Paints, I'm in town, like I live close if you want me to come out. And he was like, yeah, sure, come out. So I did some Pains was like, "Did you want to run some skill drills and stuff?" And then, but Pains was doing a pre-practice meeting about how they wanted to prepare for Chelmsford on the weekend. So
yeah,
he was really emphasizing the forecheck. So in some of the drills that I ran, we were focusing on how to execute like angling properly. So I was teaching the details of that, and I think the boys liked it. Like the feedback was pretty good. Boys were saying that JJ's never skated so hard in his life in
uh,
practice.
working
So
his fucking
like,
bag off, eh?
so like it was good. No, it's super fun to be with them. And then Guildford is just like I grew up in Guildford, and Milos is the best guy. So like I want to, as much as I can teach and give back and do stuff when I'm in Guildford is so important to me because that's where I started and maybe one day is where I end. I don't know, but like Guildford for me is just seeing those kids, and so I was out there with like the 14s, the six, no, 14s and 12s and 16s, I think a little bit on Sunday, and then we had the 10s cross ice. But just to see like the skating and skills and then doing like edge work with them, things that they haven't been like maybe don't get as much reps in and stuff. So just working with them on those things was really, really fun. But yeah, I'm always willing to like if people think I'm crazy, like I'm gonna be on vacation, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. to drive to Guildford and then get on the plane the same day back to America. But Guildford is like, if I was to have a Guildford tattoo, I think I would.
Yeah,
That's just
that,
kind of
that's
where
that's
I
the
am.
hometown club, right?
Yeah.
And we all remember where we started, where we came from, and especially once you get into the coaching side of it, you'd like to give back. Like my camps, when I held them, they were always in Basingstoke. I started at the hockey basics program right the way through coach 19s in Basingstoke, like the conferences and bits and pieces. You ain't doing it to get rich. Like you gotta want to give back, and when it is your local team, it's a no-brainer. Like what you're saying there about Guildford, looks like the work is starting in the next few days here on the refurb in Basingstoke. So hopefully Basingstoke will be back in action before too long. Because it's far too big of a club to be going extinct. Like they really need to get to the bottom of this rebuild. They need to get this ice into a working order where it's going to work for years to come. It's not going to be a short-term fix. It needs to be something that's it's going to be consistent and it's going to be good and it's going to be there for the community for many years to come. James, obviously you're in Guildford there. What's the kind of turnout of these practices? Like many kids rocking up.
Yeah, no, for Sunday morning it was pretty good actually. I think we had pretty much like the tens for cross ice. They had loads of kids, like we had 3 or 4 lines, and it was good to see Tommy Annette was coaching Slough, and then
Yeah,
Russ Stevens was also coaching Slough.
I
So
saw
I was
those
like,
boys every week.
yeah, so I was like, oh, boys, and like, and that's his son is a really good player. Like I was like, who's this little kid? Like I think he's wearing he had the same number as Bedard or something. I was like, this little
Oh,
Connor
did he?
Bedard out there.
Yeah.
And he was pretty good. But practices were good. Like they had like I think we had 18, 20 kids on the ice. But like you said, like I remember coaching in Guildford when I was like 16 years old and like I wasn't getting paid or no petrol money. And I always bring that up because I never got into coaching to get to be a professional coach. Like I went to university for advertising and I knew that was my career. And like even playing hockey in England, it wasn't ever going to be my profession. And I think I've just been lucky enough to stick with it and make it my full-time job. But I think like you like of course it'd be nice to get paid to go to Guildford on a Sunday morning, but
Yeah, of
for
course.
me, like it's just about trying to grow it and give it back more because there is kids there. Like there's a little kid you might know him, Jamesy Chandler, like 2014.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's always out there, just loves it, obsessed with hockey. Like There's
His
some
dad was
really
my
good.
teammate for juniors, mate. Russell.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was
yeah,
my
yeah,
junior
Russ. Yeah,
teammate.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like he
We're
loves it,
showing
you
our
know.
age there, fellas, a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, but he loves it. Like he's just out there all the time buzzing around, and like it's still Guildford hasn't changed much. You know, it's still the same way. Leisure Center and the rink is. I struggle to believe that like the ice is good enough for Elite League. The boards are like kind of the benches are like tiny. You know, like back in the day, you thought like, oh, these are fine, but now you think about it, what the standards are. If you think about Sheffield or Nottingham, and then you go to Guildford on a Saturday night, you must be like, ah, this is a tough place to play. Um, but
It's
yeah, no,
quiet
it's
as well, man. Like I've been to either 2 or 3 games so far this season in Guildford. It's fucking quiet.
more
Like,
like fan base or like
yeah, man. Like, and I know this is kind of like lumping on with the so-called library, but I've been spoiled in the last year for the games I've been to. I've been to Brno, I've been to Prague, I've been to Cologne, I've been to Berlin, I've been to Bern. So when I tell you it's quiet, it's fucking quiet. Like I've got some good rinks to compare it to, and it's not that there's anything wrong with the fans. It's just, unless there's a goal or the ref makes a really bad call, it's quite quiet. So, you're touching on like bad ice. When you're an away team, when there's not much atmosphere, it kind of might take a little bit longer to get going. If you skate out in Sheffield as the away team and there's 9,000 fans going apeshit, then you're going to be pumped to play. Like, I just think Guildford can be a hard place to play in the Elite League. I had Fergie on a couple of weeks back, and I don't know what it is with Guildford. They don't just seem to be firing on all cylinders. If you look at the roster, they've got some really good players, but I don't know. You like look at the Brits they have. They got Lewis Hook, they got Josh Waller, amongst other guys. You've got young Norris, Talbot. You've got some good players, but just nothing seems to be clicking for them. Have you had a chance to watch the senior team in Guildford this year?
no, there was a game on Saturday at home and I thought to myself, all right, Saturday night, I'm at home for a few days. Should I go? I texted Norcliffe and he was like, ah, it's too late now. So I said, all right, I'm not going. So I haven't
Yeah, don't
watched
blame you.
them. Like I watched like I just catched up on like on Instagram or whatever, see what's going on. Like I'm more invested in watching the Swiss National League, the Allsvenskan League, the SHL, and then the Dell. Because I have like players pretty much in those leagues. So
Yeah,
like I use Sports Contract and I look at like those players and I watch and also I find when I'm watching things that video cameras are really really good and they're in good like they're really consistent. So the way the game is analyzed and broken down is actually good to watch from an analytical standpoint. So I tend to only focus on those leagues whenever I'm watching hockey that's from Europe. And also, like you said, the fan base, like Djurgården played Oikor the other day and the derby, and like yeah, the fans are crazy. Like
nuts.
it's they sing the whole time. Like at Djurgården, they don't have music. Like and between intermissions, there's no music. It's just fans singing, which you
How
wouldn't
cool is
have.
that, by
Like
the way? That's
yeah,
fucking
it's
dope.
pretty cool. Like it's like it's definitely an interesting for the first time. And when I went to watch a game, I was like, why is there no music? And it was very and obviously that's Swedish singing in Swedish, but I thought this is like really really interesting. And then like you said, you mentioned Bern, and like if you go to like Lausanne and Bern and Davos and those places, like that league is like just legitimate. Like the fans, it's like religion for them. It's the same as
Yeah.
like going to Millwall, West Ham. You know, like it is what they do and it's what they believe in. And I just saw the team there in the Swiss National League. They just signed Belmar. You know, the guy who played
Okay.
for
Yeah, yeah.
Seattle and play. So like the quality of talent that's going over there is really really high as well. So and that team's bottom of the league right now and they had to sign a guy who played in the NHL and had to sign a PTO with Colorado to start the season. You know, he's
Yeah.
French, yeah, but like he's just played in the NHL last year. So the talent's really, really high
He's
over
played quite a
there.
few years in the NHL, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was him and Texier were like the two NHL guys on that French
Yeah,
national team.
that's
So
right.
like and I think right now that Colorado probably want to sign him because I think like out of their top nine forwards, six of them are injured right now.
They
So
got
I think
6 guys in the top 2 lines, which is
yeah.
nuts.
So I think they probably want to sign him, but yeah, he's going over there, and I just look at it and I just think like, but yeah, that's the only real hockey that I'm watching outside of like the NHL, the Elite
You
League,
talked
like
about watching the Swedish second tier there. Obviously,
yeah,
it's not a league that I tend to watch a lot. Maybe if I come across it on Hockey TV or something, I might stick it on. But I do watch the SHL. I've managed to get to a couple of live SHL games. Like the standard's unbelievable. What's the Alvescan like when you're sitting watching that regularly?
It's really good. Like there's a lot of differences that you have in North American. The biggest difference that you'll see straight away is there's more slap shots in the game.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is like that's the first thing that struck me whenever I watch it. And it's very interesting that they don't actually they're not actually trying to shoot the puck towards the net sometimes on Slapshot. They use the boards. So like the
Yeah.
boards have a
Slap
different
pass.
springing. Yeah, and it's like different springiness, but there's more set plays. There's more things like there's more holding on to possession of the puck, looking, regrouping. Like, and again, the skating is just like everyone can skate really well.
Everybody can wheel in Sweden.
Yeah,
Beautiful
like
skaters.
and everyone just has really good handles of the puck. Like the head's usually up. If they're hitting guys, they're going right through their hands. They're not just going for the shoulder. So it's really good technique. Goaltending isn't the best. Like I would say, like goalies are pretty like shocking at from distance. Like in terms of just when they're square to a puck that's letting pucks in, like you wouldn't see really regularly. So I think like if a game is 6-5, the expected goals are usually only two or three. So they're letting in two or three more than they're expected to let in.
Yeah.
Um, but like yeah, defensively and like just the way
Sounds
they
like the
play.
EPL back in the day, bro. When
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
the backups went in back in the day, be like shots going in from the fucking red line. Be like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
It was like,
maybe, but
well,
like
we could either pay that better import forward and have a backup who makes nothing. But
yeah.
yeah, makes nothing because you can't save the fucking puck. Like it was bad back then, but like obviously now Veska, you'd expect the goalie standard to be pretty fucking decent. I'm surprised that you're saying it's not that hot.
Yeah, like Yoga are not having an issue right now goalie. And like if you go on their Instagram, like all the fans are calling for the goalie to be like when I translated from Swedish to English, one of the comments was send the goalie to the sun or something. And
Really?
obviously, yeah. So but he had a good game the other night. So like, goalies can become hot and whatnot. But I had a player parent talk to me recently. He plays for Luleå and this is year's his draft year. He got offered a full ride from a Division One school, and he played 4 games in the SHL last year. And he was only just turned, I think he was 16 at the time, and he playing for Luleå. And he asked me like, what should he do? And the dad and I was like, I don't like, what are you asking me? Well, should he go to college or should he still play in the SHL? And I'm like, well, if you can play in the SHL, it's probably better than playing Division One college, no?
Yeah.
So like, but obviously let's see what happens when he gets drafted. And I think like if you look at like a Jasper Bratt, and like he came right from the Allsvenskan League, and he's never played minor league hockey. Like he's always been in NHL, and now last year was an NHL All-Star.
I was gonna say
So
he's
like
nasty.
yeah, but you look at the
Nasty.
skills that he has, he's home like no one has done that in America. Like he's done that in Sweden from the development model. And I think like if he was to be in the OHL or anything else or go to the AHL, would he be the player he is? Probably not. So I think that's another kind of tidbit to look at. And there's, like I said to you, I think earlier, like there's more guys drafted in the Swedish J20 league than there are in the USHL. If you
Let's
take
talk
out
about that quick because
this national development team.
we talked numbers off air and I found it very, very interesting. And the premise of the conversation starts, Cheema's had it, I've had it, pretty much anybody that, is involved in the game at some sort of level will have a young kid or mum and dad say, little Johnny's got to fucking move to America. He's got to. Especially more so like when I was a kid growing up. Maybe changed a little bit now, but we're going to get into that. But it was like little Johnny, he's got to go to the States. He's got to go play AAA. He's got to go do this. And we spoke off air about all the fucking things that are right and wrong with it. But we're going to bring that to you folks now. James, right. America's a great route, yeah. But for the player to actually make it, the opportunity is very, very small. The number's very, very small. The costs are astronomical. The distance is fucking outrageous. Flight prices are outrageous. Whereas we have Sweden on the doorstep. with easily accessible flights out of London, Manchester, Birmingham, wherever you are in the UK, you can get to anywhere in Sweden, probably for less than 100 quid. If you're booking in advance, probably for less than 50 quid. The competition level's outstanding. The coaching model's outstanding. Germany, the same. Again, really easy to get to from the UK. High standard, a lot of investment in juniors. If I'm now about to send my kid away to play hockey and I come to you and say, Sam, right, where should I send little Johnny? He's 15, ripped up the UK for the last two, three, 4 seasons, however many it may be. He needs the next challenge. Where are you sending him and why?
Well, so like there's so many factors that go into this. And I think if you're 15, you're gonna be GCSEs, right? So a lot like
In amongst that,
going,
yeah,
yeah, like you're going, so you got your GCSEs and your A levels. So you have 4 years of school. In America, your GCSEs start technically as a freshman. So when you go to high school here, freshman year is your first year of GCSEs. We call that, what do you call that? Year 10, right? So
yeah.
year 10 is freshman year of high school in the US, which also boggles my brain as well. I'm like, how is that the case? Like whatever. And then you have your A levels. And I think the level of education in the US is a lot different than the level of education in the UK. And obviously when you're applying for universities in the UK, it's done about like obviously your grades at A levels, what you studied, and you're given your entrance based on your grades of your exams. So it's really important for education. Now, when you talk about the hockey and everything else that throws into it, the education definitely suffers when you come into the US to play hockey because now you're not studying as much, you're training more. And really, there's no real factor on the care of the education because it's more of a generalized study. So if you try to translate those grades back into English terms, it wouldn't really make sense. So the biggest thing that I kind of advise players is like, okay, so if you want to come to the US, here's what it is. Like it's super expensive. Like a normal traditional AAA program at a boys level midget, their tuition probably charges you anywhere just for the tuition, not for building, not for anything else, around about $10,000 a year. So that's, I don't know, in UK pounds, that's maybe £9,000 for the given current exchange rate. And then on top of that, you have hotels, you have flights, you have travel. How are you going to get from New York to Buffalo? How are you going to get from New York to Minnesota? How are you going to get from New York to Canada? And we're not talking like one trip a season. We're talking two or three a month. So then the
Yeah,
hotels are
travel
normally,
teams play so much, right?
yeah, like my team has played 42 games already this season. By the end of this weekend, I'll be
November
at
the
44.
1st.
Yeah, like it's
November the
nuts.
1st.
Yeah, it's nuts. And I think when you have to consider it, it's like um with like hotels, they're like 150, $200 a night. Now you go on usually on a Thursday, so you miss a Thursday of school, you miss a Friday of school, and then you play Saturday, Sunday. So you're paying for hotel Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. So that's free. So that's $700 right there in hotels. And then you got your car rental if you're or the bus or whatever it could be, then all your food on the road. And I really think it's a really tough situation to play 5 games in 3 days, like the current model set up for. And you don't really get to prepare for the games the right way, like you're trying to prepare for a game. And also, I don't believe you're able to do your strength conditioning the way you should be at that age
No, no, you're
because
never going to be
you have no
recovered, are you?
recovery period. And when we get to the reason why some people would choose college over major juniors is because they're able to still use their strength conditioning program, be able to put on weight throughout the season, than if they were playing a major junior schedule, playing more games, more travel, and everything else. Whereas a college schedule gives them that time off to be able to have like kind of more of a periodization of training. So I think, and then you can look at pictures of Jack Eichel when he went to BU and he left BU, look at his body composition, it's a lot different, right? And you
Yeah.
start to see like what's the difference. And I think 15, 16 is a really, really big age for that kind of stuff to happen. Now, when you start to think about also the business side of hockey in North America, you can get cut at any time. You can get sent home, you can get, like released at any time and you're on your own. And I think that's really, really, there's no loyalty in the game of hockey here. It's all about business. And at the end of the day, the teams want to win games. And I think that's like, even if you go to Shattuck St. Mary's, Shattuck is only a 1 year at a time deal. It's not guaranteed. Just because you went there as a freshman at U14 does not mean you'll be there till U18. Same if you go to Mount St. Charles, same if you go to BK Select, same if you go to any other prep school, it's all done on 1 year increments. That's why also the tuition changes each year because they don't want to lock themselves in and say, hey, okay, tuition's 40 grand. But by the time you graduate, it might be up to 60 grand. So
Yeah,
everything's done on a year by year basis. And I think it doesn't give you the same kind of the structure that I think a player needs to be able to develop. I believe a player should leave if they are need another place to develop in terms of they've exceeded their expectations and their level, and then they have to go to a higher level. I think that's when a player should leave. Now, when you talk about Europe, and let's just use Sweden as an example, they have a thing called hockey gymnasium, which is your last 3 years of high school. So it'd be your second year of A level or GCSE, 2 years of A level. And
yeah,
your gymnasium is where you would go to school hockey. And let's say, I'll use Frölunda as an example. They have a gymnasium. You get selected for the gymnasium, you try out, you play for Frölunda, and Frölunda would have a J16, a J18, J20 team, and above that would be the SHL. Okay, so like they have all these teams like kind of linked towards this, and the funding comes from the top club all the way down. You'd move, you'd go there, you'd live on your own pretty much, and sometimes in like a little apartment or whatever, cook for yourself, and do all those things. Your parents could be there if they want to, but you're on the ice every day. You're playing 2 games, maybe 3 games a weekend, depends if you're playing J16, J18. But you might play Thursday, you might play Friday, occasionally Saturday, not much on a Sunday. But you're playing 3 20-minute periods and you're playing legitimate hockey against best on best in a region, like in a national kind of competition. You play your Aura Brewers, you play your Lulias, you play your Skellefteås, you'll play all the top players in the whole region. If you're good enough, okay, now you're playing SHL. Yeah, and that's kind of the pathway, and it doesn't cost you anything. And you
no,
can still do your education online through England. So you could still be going playing in Sweden and still be doing your educational in England and still getting your GCSE, still getting your A levels. But they wouldn't, it's very hard for them to then, they don't really cut players. There's no like, if you start to look at like minor hockey in Sweden as well, kids don't move from club to club each year.
no.
They stay in the same club in the same region. And then once it gets to gymnasium, then they leave because now they go into these professional organizations. And I think it's just a different setup. And I think it's something that needs to be really looked at and evaluated when people are looking to send their kids to North America with, like, again, I just went to hospital the other day for my pneumonia and it's $400 just to walk in the door.
Mental, isn't it?
And that's just my copay. And then I'm going to get a bill for whatever insurance and cover. So like there's expenses here, and I think it's just something that needs to be really thoroughly considered. And it doesn't mean that just because you're not in North America, you can't play in the USHL, the NA, the NCDC at junior levels, or you can't go to the NHL or any of those things because it's been proven time and time again by the amount of Swedes, the amount of Czechs, the amount of Slovaks, like even French, like we talk about, like who are in the
Yeah.
NHL, who are in these leagues and they haven't actually gone through the same ringer of playing youth hockey in North America.
The option of Sweden, I just think so accessible for talented players from the UK. Obviously, what helps now is having guys like Liam Kirk. He's out there. He's flying the flag. Led the playoffs in scoring for Litvinov for in the Czech playoffs last year for Litvinov, and he has continued that on at Berlin. And that's going to show British hockey in a good light in Sweden. It shows British hockey in a good light in Czech. He obviously did well when he went over to Finland for the cup of coffee he had there. But it's given these kids like, look, yeah, Kirky went and did the America thing, but also Europe's a very, very good option. You ask Joey Lewis, like he's been out playing in Germany for over a decade now. You've got Sam Jones, he's currently out playing in Romania. He seems to be having a great time. Like the guys that go out and play and get these experiences in Europe, everybody seems to be having a good time. Everybody seems to be learning, improving, and you get to experience a different culture. You get to live in a different spot. I mean, I can guarantee Berlin is a great spot for Kirky to be living in this year.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
It's like sick.
It's a good league as well. Adele is not bad. Like
It's a
I
really
got
good league.
McRae. McRae's in Dusseldorf. He loves it, but their team's not doing so good this season yet. But we'll see. Hope they pick it up.
That's one of the
Um,
teams I actually saw last year at Dusseldorf. I saw them. They came into Cologne, and yeah, that was a good game. Like, fuck it. I watched 4DL games live last year.
nice.
Mate, it's so good.
Yeah,
Like,
McRae
so
came to
good.
Ozone to skate in the summer before he went to Germany.
What was he like?
Yeah, he was good. Like I told the boys to come and skate, but no one wanted. Like I only had who came? He skated with Sam Line and Sam Cooper,
Is that it?
and
Just the two
yeah,
young
yeah. But
lads.
like Bryony came on the ice to go on net, Lucas, and then but it was interesting. I think Sam, Sam Line is strong, and McRae's a strong guy, but like. He now he knows like what real strength, like in the corners and like we're just doing
Yeah.
angling drills. Like he was like, oh fuck, this is like hockey, like so yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, no, it's like with Kirky and Adele, it's legitimately like for the league. And I also tell that to like, to English players, like the hardest thing is I've had the same thing here being in North America, like and even in Sweden to some extent, like whenever I gone there, you're English. What do you know about hockey? And I think
Right.
that's the
Okay.
hardest hurdle you have to find when you leave the country and try to go somewhere. Like you have to remember, like you're not expected to do well or be good. Like you're
No,
English,
no.
and that's like the before you even step in the door, no one's really going to take you too seriously until you prove yourself. And
I
I
had that in
think that
Florida, mate, when I went there.
yeah,
100%.
and that's the hardest thing for these kids. Like like if I was to have an American kid who's really good, an English kid better than them. But the American kid will probably get the opportunity because, like, oh, he's American, he's played in AAA, he's played for this team and that team, that good team. But this kid might be better than him, but just doesn't get the opportunities. And I think like that's just something that's really, really just hard to navigate. But and then I think if the kids are leaving the country to go to these avenues and everything else, it's the hardest hurdle as well. It's a lot of people doubting them back home, like, okay, you're only going there because your parents have money, or, like it's not going to work out, and all this like doubt and stuff. And I think there has to be a better way that as a community that we support these players and have some belief in them, like, okay, like this is going to be good. This is going to help our national program. This is going to be the best thing. And like we're going to get better as a group, not just on an individualized island that like one player is going to do something and like just because Kirky is obviously doing really, really good, but what's the benefit? Like if Kirky's really, really good for like obviously he's gonna make our national program better and everything else, but like how can we make this as a community like be more supportive and everything else? And like the next kids coming through and believing in it. And I don't I just want that to kind of happen. So like I think with with the kids coming through, like when they want to go somewhere, they just have to ask themselves that question, like why do you want to go? What are your expectations of going? And what do you know about the place that you're going to? Are you only going to a place just because that 10 English people have gone to in the past? Like, or like, what are your expectations? Are your expectations that you're going to get drafted to the USHL in 2 years' time from this? Or your expectations that you're going to be on the top team? And I think that Sam Line is a great example to most British kids where he went to Northwood and like not, like, I've seen a picture of him when he went there. He was a small boy, he wasn't like he is now. I don't know if you know him, Watty, but like he's a
I
big
don't
boy
know.
now.
Is he
Oh, so like
a
this
bit of a beast, is he?
well, this is a kid, like, I don't know if you know his story. His story is really interesting. He's from Chelmsford, right? And he
Okay.
went to Northwood, and North is not cheap, but like, he went there and they had three teams when he went there. So they had like the varsity team, like they call it the prep team, and then a third team, which was like just recreational hockey, I guess, to some degree. So he played on the third team, but that team doesn't even exist anymore. He worked his way up, and this kid, like, he if you look at like he does like stuff online on Instagram for hockey performance training or whatever, he's in fantastic shape. He's built his body to be away. He ended up going to Cranbrook in the BCHL. So
Yeah,
now he's in the
nice.
BCHL and he's committed to Colgate.
Oh,
Now, if you
legend.
said to him 4 years ago, hey, you're going to commit to Colgate, everyone would be like, what are you talking about? The kid was like,
Yeah,
I don't
no
know,
chance.
65 kg, and
Yeah.
like he wasn't very good. And now, like, yeah, there's things in his games, like his hockey IQ and those things they need to develop. But if I'm a British kid, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I want to be like Sam Line. Like he has worked his way to this. Like he broke his hand, and I posted this on my Instagram because he broke his hand, and then he was posted a video of him shooting pucks one-handed while his hand was broken while he was in the BCHL.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a kid that doesn't rest just because he got a broken hand, doesn't stop him from trying to get better at what he wants to do. So like that's really, really, I think more kids looking like that kind of format will go a long way than trying to just jump from place to place. But yeah, like Sweden is a good option for sure. Like I think it's hard to get into, but if you get into it,
Yeah.
it's a good place.
What have you what have you noticed that the UK kind of coaching system's lacking in your trips over here? What can we be doing to make it better and ultimately delivering a better product where the kids are going to learn more and develop into better hockey players?
I think ice time is tough to get. Obviously, Basingstoke is down, and
Yeah.
rinks are shutting more than they're growing. So ice time is tough. I think one thing that we could do more is like I was speaking to Milos about this, like not just having one group on the ice at practice, maybe have two teams so to get more ice, like maybe one of the
Yeah.
sessions is now a skill session, or whatever it could be like. So instead of them having 2 hour practices, you now have I don't know, a 2 hour practice, but now it's like together or whatever, and then you split up if you need to.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing as well, like that's missed, maybe is film. It's like,
Okay.
yeah, like
Yeah.
off ice is big as well. Like, I don't know how much off ice they're doing. I use Roop down at Ozone when we do camps. Roop's fantastic.
Yeah, he's good.
Quinny, yeah, like his programming, his structure. So when I was down there doing a camp, I had 4 groups. He had a pro group in there too, and just ran seamlessly. I told him what I was doing on the ice that day. He kind of worked with it. He knew where they were at. Didn't want to tire him too out. Taught him some really good things. So that was really, really good. But I think film is really, really big. Like I think not enough players are realizing not. And again, the players say they don't have confidence in the game, and confidence comes from your feeling.
Yeah.
Like I can't give you confidence. I feel confident. And I think when we talk about film, we got to look at it from the player's perspective. And we got to say, like, hey, like, we need to watch this film together as a group. And yeah, we can talk about our system and strategies and what we want to do. But you also got to tell the players as well, like, hey, you have more time to make plays. You have more time and you can support each other and communicate in certain ways. And I think whenever I played in England, I remember the only film we watched one time was a VHS of watching Swindon, like someone secretly recorded before he played 12U, playoff game or something. I think Barry Russell went to the game and recorded it or something,
Yeah.
but there was no film. But now there's films to everything, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like, if you can see, like the game doesn't change from the NHL to, I guess, Pee Wees in England, like U12. It's 5-on-5 full ice, same rules, pretty much everything else. Apart from I think in England, the goalies change on the fly now and in
Oh,
12U.
really?
And
I don't know about
yeah,
that.
I saw
What?
something where the goalies are in the
Come
corner, the
on.
backup goalies are in the corner and they were changing. Again, I don't know what's happening there, but like, and then it is whatever. But like, it's still 5-on-5. It's still real hockey, and I think
But
you can
just with
say,
random goalies hanging out in the corners while you're playing.
yeah, yeah. I was asking, it's Russ Chandler. And I was like, what the hell's going on in this video? It's like, the goalies are switching. And but yeah, I think you can use the NHL, you can use the Elite League, you can use anything. And when I go to England and I ask like there was a player on the weekend and they had Zajac on their back. So Travis Zajac, played Devils and like whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, Travis Zajac. He's like, who's that? And I'm like, oh, it's like, he has the same last name as you. He played for the Devils. Never heard of him. And then there was another kid
Right.
who had like 86 in their jersey. I was like, oh, who's your favorite player? Thinking they'll say like Jack Hughes. And they were like, no, I don't really have one. And I was like, why'd you wear 86? Oh, it was my house number. And I was
Right.
like,
Just
oh,
nothing.
yeah. So I think we just gotta introduce hockey more to these kids. So like hockey's not just a recreational sport. It's more about like they eat, live, and breathe it a little bit more and they get
Yeah.
influenced that way. So I think that could be really, really, added to the UK scene.
Just yeah, I could have told you what hand in every player was, what fucking jersey number they wore, where they came from. Like I was just a geek for it. Like and when I wasn't shooting pucks, you're doing push-ups, or you're doing something. You were doing something to get that little bit better, and
Yeah.
that shows in your game. Especially by the time I got to the U15s over here, U16s, it's pretty pointless for me. Like it was like a walk in the park. But you're playing against kids that are not doing the same as you, and then they expect them to get the same opportunities as you. You're not going to get those opportunities unless you're willing to do the stuff that nobody else is willing to do. You do the extra steps, you do the extra yards that are going to improve you as a player, as an athlete, as a person. It's going to give you more discipline. All of these things that parents kind of expect to just happen. I see from youth hockey, especially like U15s kind of down. Little Johnny didn't get enough ice. So little Johnny missed the last three practices. When's the last time he worked out at home? Or oh yeah, well he hasn't really done it for like the last 3 or 4 weeks here. Figure it the fuck out. That's why he's sitting on his ass. Like you've got to be willing to put the work in. Like you've touched on Connor Bedard a couple of times. Watch that kid getting ready for the draft. There was no days off.
Yeah.
Like it was dedication to the cause, and that's why he's such an absolute weapon.
So do
What would you
you think it's
go on?
more
Sorry.
because like maybe in youth hockey you don't have best on best a lot?
Yeah,
So like
massively.
what I mean is like you don't there's no nothing really at stake on the weekend.
No.
Like so like for instance, there's a 2011 kid that I work with. His name's Jack Cross, and he plays with Mid Fairfield. And they won Quebec tournament like the AAA, you know, like they like the best Pee Wee whatever. So the team won it. And he got MVP of the game. So like
Sick.
he's his trajectory from Pee Wee should be NHL, right? Like he won
Yeah,
Quebec, you know, MVP. Like this is the kid, and his team is number one in the country, Mid Fairfield. And he came back last weekend. They played Vaughan Kings and Toronto Canadiens, like 1 and 2 in Canada. So I was on the ice with him on Monday. I was like, "How was it?" He's like, tough games." And what happened? We lost 2-1 to Vaughan Kings, so we got knocked out. But the week before that, they beat them, and like so, like they lose sometimes some games to teams that are like 10th ranked in the country, but they
right.
want to play best on best. So they're traveling to play like these Canadian teams and like and the teams in like Michigan and stuff more
Yeah.
than they're playing teams in Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York. So like do you think that in order for them to be motivated, like these players, there has to be a way in England to be more best on best competition of kids in some way, but like it's hard because the current club structure and conference, I don't really know what happens with that. But maybe that's what's happening. Because in Sweden, you have best on best because you have your national and your regional groups, and like it's the regional, like it's like just in the local area. But national, it's like these kids are traveling to play best on best. Is that what you
France do the
think?
same. Bandy was saying that France do the same. They have their kind of local leagues, their regional leagues, and then they have which is essentially conference, but it runs all year long. So like the best three guys from this club, the best five guys from that club, and whatever they make up that regional club. But they play in the league format all year. So there is best on best games going on. Yeah, there's more travel, but by the time you get to that stage and you are one of these better players, you're probably committed to the cause. You probably want to you kind of make a job out of this at that point. By the time you're U15, U18, you're gonna know like, hey, I think I got a chance to play in the Magnus League, or I think I got a chance to play in the Dell, whatever country you're in. Right, you think you got a chance to play in that top league and make some money and actually have a career out of it. Do you think if we had more guys, like in the Dowdy mold, Ben O'Connor mold, Bouncy mold, that have made a career out of it in the UK, if we had more guys in that top league and the elite league, making it look like a career, like you can make some money, this is what you can do, and you'll go and you'll have sponsorship deals when you play for GB, and like make it more attractive? Because right now, a lot of the opinions of the Brits would be, well, you go up to the elite league, you get treated like shit unless you're one of the big dogs. And that has
Yeah,
to
like
change.
I don't know like how the kids get treated. Like I speak to Cooper, that's it. Like Cooper tells me, you know, he's happy at Sheffield, Steel Dogs, Steelers, whatever.
Yeah.
Car, apartment, like he had like okay life. And he's getting good minutes at Steel Dogs and stuff. But like I think I tell this to Brits, I think you get paid more in the Elite League than you do in the East Coast.
Yeah,
You
probably.
know? So like, hey guys, it's not a bad job. And like maybe you get like some MBA or schooling paid for and stuff. Like it's pretty good. So I think, but again, going back to that best and best at the youth level, like France do, maybe that's a way that kids don't have to leave the country.
Yeah,
Maybe that's a way that kids don't have to go somewhere else to get the competition, to get the extra games, to get the extra practices. Maybe now they get to play another 30 games a year. Now you're up to 50 games a year with your league, and now like you're not that far off from playing North American level of hockey. Maybe that has to be privatized. Maybe that's a private entity that comes in, sets it up, pays for the ice outside of it, and it's a different entity outside of UK ice hockey or whatever it is
interesting.
to make this go through. And that's really what the reality is. US hockey is all privatized. Like every district is privatized. The only thing that USA hockey comes together in is nationals.
Nationals,
But
yeah.
everything else is privatized. Everything else is district based. Everything else is it's a very political landscape when you get into it. But even the companies that organize all these tournaments and showcases, it's not teams. It's like private, like 200 by 85 is like they have that CCM Chicago right now. There's like 400 teams there. It's all privatized, and then making a killing because you think about, okay, how much the ice is and all this stuff, but they're making at least $10 to $15 a night on a hotel room. Think about how many hotel rooms there are, four
Yeah,
nights.
mad.
You're making about 50 grand just on the hotels at least.
Yeah,
So
they do
like,
very well.
yeah, like so the privatization maybe has to come in, but I think that's the way that kids don't think. And yeah, like the elite league and thinking of it like as it's a real job. Like if you're getting paid, I don't know what they're getting paid, but if you're getting paid 30 to 50,000, let's say, like that's more than a starting salary for a copper or a school teacher,
Yeah,
so it's a pretty good job. Okay, yes, you can be a copper and a school teacher for a longer time of your life, yes, and have a pension and stuff, but it's not bad salary to have when you're
but like
22
Paul
years old.
Swindlehurst did it. He got out at maybe 30, maybe a little bit earlier, but then he went and done the police thing. So you can have that,
Yeah,
17 to 27, 28. You can have a 10-year career in the elite league and make some more money and go to school. And then if you want to come out and be a copper, you're still going to be able to go in and do your pension and do everything else. But you would have had a pretty good crack at, if you play 10 years pro and the money's all right and your house and your car's paid for, you're going to be all right.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you didn't have to pay for your house or car, you could even bought your own one and rent it out.
There you go. Like there's options there for the Brits. But I think if we could just see more Brits succeeding and more Brits succeeding in the elite league than going on to that national team, it is gonna open that pathway up because we all know, and it's been the same for when I played and before. A lot of people are happy in the national or they were in the EPL and they could be a Sparky and be a plumber and make 350, 400 quid a week in the EPL and make 500 quid a week to a grand a week at work. And all of a sudden you're taking home 6.5, 7 grand a month. You're only training 2 nights a week. You know what
Yeah,
I
it's not a
mean?
bad
Like,
life. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah,
all of a sudden, so it's kind of hard. Then, like, you want to go to the elite league, and then you're like, yeah, we'll give you 250 a week, and you've got to be on the ice 4 days a week, and then there's two games, and then by the way, did we say the next four Sundays you're in Cardiff, Dundee, Fife, and Glasgow? You're like, well, that can't work. And then all of a sudden you're
yeah.
starting to go, right, fuck. I'm leaving like 1,200 quid a week on the table here to go and have an opportunity to try and play in the Elite League.
Well,
And
that's
I've
where
spoken.
like
Sorry, go.
the funding for the teams are all private entities, right? So like the elite league, like Sheffield Steelers is owned by some
Kenny Smith and
person, right?
everybody.
It's
Yeah,
like a franchise. They own the franchise or whatever. Now, my understanding is in Sweden, let's say if you're a Brynäs, right? So Brynäs got promoted to the SHL. Now, my understanding is they get a dividend from the TV rights. Now, the
yeah,
SHL, if they get relegated from the SHL, I think it's the considerable amount of sum. It roughly equates to like 5 million US dollars is what they lose in TV rights to go to the
shit.
Allsvenskan, which is a lot of money. But what I also understand is the structure is Brynäs has all the money at the top with the SHL, but they also have SDHL, the women's team. Then they have all the youth programs all the way down. So let's say, just throwing a number out there, the budget is 20 million for the year. That's what they have. That has to go all the way down, like for every team. It's not like, okay, we're going to spend 20 million on the SHL team. and everyone's going to get these fat contracts. No, it goes all the way down to the whole program. What if UK hockey was like that?
I
Where
reckon.
like you had the kids all the way up, and like so now who knows? You could have I don't know a dad in the U10s that or mom like who are like a chief executive at Google. Now Guildford is sponsored by Google,
Yeah,
right? And now the funding comes all the way down. Now how many more kids could you get into the game of hockey when the cost is nothing,
50 quid or nothing a month. Like, yeah.
right? Like how many more kids could you get playing the game when
I don't know
everyone's
if you
trying?
caught on the Henry interview. I said I was talking to one of my friends,
Okay.
and they were talking, a football mum, right? And we're talking about it, and I was talking because I've been talking to a hockey shop about coming on as being a sponsor. So I was explaining, like what sticks and fucking what sticks cost and all that. And she was like, right, he plays for two teams, Saturday and Sunday, 600 quid a year, couple of pairs of boots because his feet grow. 700 quid for the year. And I was like, fucking won't get you through the first weekend. That won't get through registration, a pair of skates. I won't get like, you're going to be looking around for more dough, just skates, sticks, registrations. And I was like, if your kid's good and they make like the road to Quebec or something, you're gonna have your subs. Then you're gonna be in Peterborough on one Sunday, and then the next Sunday you're gonna be in Chelmsford, and then you're gonna have two home games, and you're gonna be in Victor, and then you got to go to Sheffield, and then you got to come back, and then you got to go to Sheffield next month. Oh, they're really good, so they're gonna get quite far in the trial. So yeah, you got to go back to Sheffield once
Yeah.
every month. Oh, and then did I say you got to go to fucking Slovakia and then Quebec? And she was like, what? Like, what the fuck? Where do these parents get the money? I'm like, I don't know, but they do, and they find a way. But there you go. If that's free, well, say that kid doesn't go. Do you know what? Fuck it. Or not even free, even if it's the same, it's 700 quid for the year or whatever it is. But there's an option there. You can Google are involved with Guildford. That kid definitely goes and tries it, and he's good. He's captain of his school team. He's captain of both the other teams he plays for. He's going to be a good footballer. But so he's got sporting prowess. He's got sporting ability. We can't tap that market because you're going, yeah, if your kid wants to try it, it's going to be 6 grand for the first year. You're like, fuck.
Like I have this Slovakian kid that just came over here to US. He played for Slovakian Kings. He's been playing hockey only for 2 years, right? He's now playing AAA hockey, like defenseman. Uh, Dude, this kid is unreal, unreal. But he was playing football before. Like he's a good athlete. His parents don't have much money, so he got some help. Some people pulled together to help him to come to US and stuff. But like he doesn't have money. I don't charge him. Like he doesn't have money. Like just come and skate. But he's only playing 2 years, and like we're losing so many players because the finances are keeping the people out of the sport. And there's like I think if maybe if the clubs if everyone's relying on the governing body to do something, maybe we as individuals and as clubs and people within the sport need to say, hang on, how can we do this ourselves on a smaller scale? So hopefully other people will do the same thing around the country. Maybe that's the way. Yeah, that's how I see it. I don't know.
I like what Aberdeen are doing in the SNL. Obviously, their guys don't get paid, but they sell out every week. And instead of the owners just filling their pockets, the money goes back into the juniors. I think the kids pay like 50 quid a month subs. Bearing in mind, like Basingstoke was like 140s or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they're getting a good amount of ice time, good coaching. That it goes from here and it goes in. Done. And then guess what? You're just going to keep fucking producing talent that want to play for the senior team because they went 10s, 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s, links, boom, straight through. And, now there's other pathways in Scotland. You've got the SNL, mate. I was really impressed. I went to watch the playoff finals last year. Very, very good. There's some good talent up there, untapped market. But the kids can now go from there to Solway. There's three elite league teams. If you want to then go on to that, there is stepping stones. I was talking to Scott Plews yesterday. We would love to see another kind of team in that kind of Dundee, Fife area come into the national. Solway have proved it can work. There's a lot of guys up there that could be playing in the national, and it wouldn't dilute the standard at all, and it would give another avenue for Scottish kids to make that step to the elite league. So ultimately, that's what we try to do here. We try to improve the national team. We try to improve the top level. We try to get as many Brits as we can in those top jobs. And it all starts from, like you say, these initiatives. How do we get Google involved? How, someone's dad's a fucking CEO of Peloton or some
Yeah.
shit. Like you see it, especially in, like junior parents. Teams you've coached fucking kids long enough. I've coached. You get to the conference weekend, you go, oh, fucking so and so's dad over there. You fucking see him. He turned up in a Maserati or whatever. You're like, what's he do? And you're like, oh, okay. So this guy's got like money. And then the biggest baller ever, without being a baller, he used to dress like a fucking pikey, but Hepburn. You would never know he had a pound note to rub together. Apart from he did the most baller thing ever. We were playing the GB 18s warm-up tournament in France up in the mountains. And he landed a helicopter on top of the roof and came in and watched the game and then left just before the end of the third. I was like, yeah, that was gangster as fuck. Like he's in like a fucking 9-year-old Guildford under 12s tracksuit and a pair of Wranglers that look like they've absolutely been on the ranch for about 20 years, but then just lands his helicopter on top of the building. I'm like, enough respect, Mr. H. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
boss. But you need people involved that have got money. It's ultimately like what obviously you touched on, like you listened to a little bit of the Henry episode. Obviously he's now in what he would call like phase two of his plan. He's in year two. He's got the governance in place. He's now getting the people in place. The next part of his plan, obviously going in to 25 here, would be getting the commercial side, getting the finances, and bringing money in. If he could bring money in, what would be like from your perspective? What would be the top kind of two or three things that they should focus on spending that money on?
So I think it's defining what the plan is. Like, is the plan to just get money in and pay the current players, like who are still here, or is the plan to develop the whole program? So in the next 10 years, we're going to be here, or is it just to get from GB back into the pool A again? I mean, that's what it'll be defined. And I think if you're looking at it from a larger, longer period of thing, I always believe there's three things of development. There's number one, good coaching. Number two, good competition in games. And number three, your teams have to be competitive. Like in practice, you got to be competing with each other. So that's what I think. That's my belief in development. So if I'm going to get a pool of money, I'm going to be like, okay, so how can we have better coaching? Number one. How do we, oh, like I got thumbs up on my Zoom there. How do we get number one, like in my coaching, like, and then number two, okay, so like if ice time is such a limiting factor, okay, we ran a camp in Briançon in France in the summer for pro defensemen, and the ice was only €60 an hour. And the hotel
Like
with free
10
meals,
hours, please.
yeah,
Let's
but
go.
the meal for free for breakfast, lunch, and dinner was also and stay was also €60 a day.
Yeah.
So like if you need more ice, it's not that hard to go down to bring on like it's a nice place to
Yeah.
be as well in the Alps. In Sweden, I was paying $80 an hour for ice as well. Right. And I could have as
Well,
much as I
my
want.
last camp in Basingstoke, fuck me, that was, and we're going back over a decade. It's gonna be 12 years, 13 years ago. I think I was up at like 227 plus VAT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus
So
VAT. And then that would be 3 hours a night. So you're looking at 700 quid or something like that. What the fuck?
yeah, and then you got to charge the people a lot of money to come, and then it's like, and
Yeah.
then again makes it this whole thing. So, okay, and I heard him saying something. I think on the interview, he was talking about like maybe they're building their own rink,
I
like
like the idea of that.
yeah, like okay, but that's a large sum of money. Okay, and then is it going to be another rink where it just turns into okay, we need to make money, and so we need to have puppet sessions
Yeah.
because that was making the money.
Yeah.
Like that,
But
if that is the
James,
case, then
it's the UK, brother. We know the
yeah.
answer to that. Yeah.
But like
Yeah,
if that's the case,
absolutely.
then you've completely misaligned your goals because the
Yeah,
rink
I agree.
should be funded by a long-term plan that is all for training and it's all for like if it's just going to be and it can't be in a location that's like D-side or Dumfries that like excludes so many people. So I don't think building the rink is the right idea. I think it's a great idea
Okay.
in principle, but I think actually using the money to pay rinks to offset and say, hey, this is where this money's going. We're purchasing this amount of ice for this is our allocation, and this is what's going to happen during this time. And I think that's the best way to do it. So then you have regionalized camps and
How much of
regionalized
an
events.
issue are Planet Ice in your plan there? Because
I don't know them too well. I just see from it's Planet Ice is the
yeah,
same as
man,
what we have here. It's a Black Bear Sports Group who are buying every rink, and
yeah.
they're like making a monopoly. I just know that Invicta hasn't changed since I've been there and been Planet Ice,
No.
and it's like Milos sent me a picture of Saturday where he was at Invicta. I was like, hasn't changed much. Um, but like I don't know, like I think it's like, like what more can we be doing? Like if you're looking at it from a youth perspective, like, okay, how can we get kids on the ice during the daytime? Like
Yeah,
when the ice is dead, how can we get them on the ice before school? Like, but then you got kids traveling an hour and a half, 2 hours from work or from school or home or whatever it is to get to the rink. But yeah, I think if if you're looking at it from a long-term development, you need to have best on best. And realistically, like I think I mentioned last time, imagine if you were able to build a team in the UK, and it doesn't have to be conference. Like I could come in tomorrow and say, hey, Kingston Mackenzie and the best O9s, we're gonna go to Sweden this weekend in February. We're gonna go to Czech this weekend in November, and we're gonna go to like they're doing right now. They're in Chicago, and they're going to Chicago. They're going to Chicago
yeah.
for a weekend in October. Okay, and now we're getting another 20 games a year. But why can't the federation do that themselves? Where the parents don't have to pay 2 grand to go to Chicago,
Short-sighted.
why, and they don't have to go there, and like it's so much cheaper. Like you can get on a bus and go to Holland. The bus is cheap. Get to Holland, sleep
Yeah.
on the freaking floor, eat just regular food, and then go play hockey, and it's cheap. Like we could be doing those things. We could be getting better specialized coaches and everything. And like again, I brought up about confidence. Like a lot of kids struggle with that and anxiety and depression. Like we can bring in real specialists in those fields, like to help kids overcome these things. They're not struggling on their own.
Funnily
And
enough, last episode, that's what Scott Clues, that's why he's got back into the game, and that's the angle that Cluesy wants to go down. And he's really intrigued by the mental side of the game and the kids that are struggling with anxiety, depression, lack of confidence, lack of belief. Because a lot of the time, the kids have the skills, they have the game, they're just lacking a little bit up top. And like you say, you bring in a specialist, even someone like Scott who's been involved in the game for fucking 3 generations. That's gonna again help our program. If these things are in place and if these ideas are coming to the table, hopefully you lot that are watching this share these videos, man. I will start clipping some of these and start getting them on YouTube in smaller clips, getting them on Instagram in smaller clips, sorry, where it's a lot easier for you guys to share. It's fucking yeah, you're gonna share an hour and 15-minute podcast. Be like, yeah, fast forward to this bit. Like I get it. Like it's a fucking ball ache. And in 2024, we are all lazy. Like it's like, oh, clip right there. When it's right there, it's easy to click. We'll make sure we are getting some of these clipped up because some of the stuff that we're talking about, if not all the stuff that we are talking about, is important for the longevity of good standard of UK hockey. And if if we want to be a Pool A nation again and we want to be there consistently, a lot of what we've talked about today has to come into action sooner rather than later. What would be what would be your number one thing for like before I let you go here? What would be your number one thing that like Henry at Ice Hockey UK and Clifton and everybody that's there, Pete and GB and all the others that are at the EIHA sort of level? What would be the number one thing they need to be focusing on within like the next 12 months to really grow the UK like brand and the UK like the kids make it how do we grow them? Like we've got the what used to be the School of Excellence, and it was conference, and now it's this. I can't even remember what the fucking program's called. Sorry, Martin, he's going to moan at me now. What, like the thing they do at Sheffield at the end of the year.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
almost like a prospects camp sort of thing. What would you think they need to be doing over the next 12 months to ensure like better players coming through in the next 2 to 3 years?
If I'm talking from a GB standpoint, like just for GB, I would say feedback and make the players feel heard and make them feel they're supported. So encouraging them and like checking in on them on a regular basis and seeing exactly where they're at, regardless if they're playing National League, they're out overseas playing, they're a U15, they're U16, have a legitimate plan for them in place and have regular check-ins with them to make them
Love
feel
that.
they're still part of it, unless just because they're not on the squad, maybe they miss the U20 squad, but they're still eligible for the year next year. Really, really just keep checking on them. It could be simple as like, hey, saw you played against Swindon last night. Great game. Loved,
Yeah.
loved, loved it. As I popped in the rink, I saw you make this great reception, and I saw you walk the line really well. Like you had your head up. Like I thought you had a fantastic game. Something quick like that. Think about kids' confidence from that point.
Oh,
Whoa,
skyrocket.
yeah, you get a message like that, your confidence is right there. And I think that's something that, that I work with a lot on. But like it just shows your care, shows your attention, shows you're still watching, shows that like they're not just forgotten about. And then the other, the players who are in the program, who are on the team, you have robust programs for them and you know exactly how much ice time they have, how they're playing, what systems they're playing. You're checking in with them, you're calling them. I just had a phone call with the Danish Federation because the goalie plays for me here, and she basically the backup for Denmark, but like the guys, asking, like what's going on. I got a player going back to play against Poland for GB this week. I have a player going to play for Austria this week. She's playing in Norway for Austria national team, and there's feedback,
Awesome.
and that kind of stuff, and they're getting feedback. The Danish and Austrians getting feedback. The GB,
No, they're not. Yeah.
no, there's no feedback, but like it is what it is. Like
So that needs to
and I
change. And that's something that I brought up with Henry. And he kind of almost brought it up before I brought it up. Do you know, like he wants that. And obviously, I don't know Henry. I can just take him at face value from the interview. He seemed like a good guy. He seemed like from everybody that I've talked to, his head and heart are both in the right place. I want to see him now put what he said into action, like you're talking about. Like, let's get some feedback from these camps. Let's know what the coaches thought. Let's know why we lost those games and what you could have done to be better. When you won those games, what was it you done well that contributed to the win? Like, what can you be working on in your off season? Okay, I've been checking in on your gym. Why the fuck have you not been to the gym in 6 weeks? That's not acceptable. Like, why,
yeah.
when I speak to Milos, that every time he sees you at Guildford Rink, you've got a fucking burrito hanging out your mouth? Like, it could be anything. Like, it literally could be, but just showing the kids that, hey, we are watching. It's not just come up to a trial once every fucking 6 weeks and then we don't think about you again. It would be beneficial for the whole program to have. Well, obviously, I'm a PT, right? Root again in that mold. There's a bunch of us. There's a shit ton. Sam Jones, Ricky Skeen. Like there's so many guys that have been involved in the game that are involved in this. That if you again set something up where we needed to do it for Neil Lydiard and just people keep popping into my bed, like Ben Wood from Manchester. There's fucking loads of us. If we needed to come up with a program for fucking 2,000 kids that was there's say that Sean Thompson, let's say there's 25 PTs that are still involved that would be happily to get involved and put some sort of program in place, even if it's not specifically for each individual. But if we came up with 10 beginner programs, 10 for U12s, for U14s, for you, and progressed it all the way along, it's better than you doing nothing. And it's something that we could come up with probably in like 3 or 4 hours of our own time each, and it would make so many hockey players better. But you got to reach out. You got to come up with these initiatives. You've got to fucking try and get these things off the ground because, like Cheem said, sometimes you're gonna have to take it and put it on their lap. You are really. Do you know what I mean? Like no
Yeah.
one's doing it. You're gonna have to go in and be like, "Yoo-hoo, over here. Why don't we do this? Why aren't we doing that?" Like that's why I liked bringing up. Obviously, it was yourself that brought up about your girl that plays for France, and she's over here doing her workouts. They got the fucking heart rate monitor on, and it's tracking back, and it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Like that's the shit. That is the shit. Like we need that. We want that. You can't fucking hide from that if you're the athlete. Like
Well, you know what's interesting about those teams as well? They have national team gatherings, but they don't go on the ice.
okay,
So France and Denmark, they come to national team gatherings, and there's no ice component. They just do off ice.
nice.
So they have testing off ice. So like the Danish goalie that plays for us this year, she smashed all of our off ice records. Beep tests, push-ups, pull-ups, 5-10-5. It's like
That's freak,
smashed
yeah.
it. Like
Yeah.
just crazy. And like she hasn't been skated that much this summer. But like that's where even Minnesota Wild, they moved to that for their development camp this year. They just did off ice,
Yeah.
no on ice. And it was very interesting. Like teams are moving that way. And I think that, yeah, like that's something that we always think is ice, ice, ice. When realistically, like you guys, like what you guys do is without the off ice, there is no ice. There is no growth. There's no development. There's nothing. And what I felt was really interesting, I'll leave with everyone with this because I know I bored everyone to death of Sweden, but I was in Sweden and it was the end of July, early August. I was in a hockey shop and it was packed, crazy busy. And I was like, what is going on? And everyone was buying shin pads, elbow pads, pants, like things that like the things that you grow out of. And I
Yeah.
asked the guy, I was like, is it always like this? He's like, yeah, because in Sweden we have like the whole summer off. And then this next week they start hockey again. So everyone outgrew everything. I've
Yeah.
never seen that happen in the US. Like I see kids in my locker room still wearing the same elbow pads and shin pads the last 4 years because all they've done is skate, 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 skate so much, they've never been able to grow,
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing as well. Like, I don't know, like I think it's just different.
That's an
Like,
interesting take, actually.
yeah, yeah, and the hockey shop doesn't care because they're happy. They're making,
Yeah,
they
no,
get
no.
it's like back to
That's
school
fine.
day. Like they're
Yeah.
happy as Larry. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think there's so many things. Like if I'm GB, I think feedback is the biggest thing. It's just getting people who are really passionate, involved, who care about it, who want to do things. Maybe go as far as have a traveling scout to watch hockey as much as they can, so they're
I
actually
like
in
that idea.
person. Like USA Hockey has that. So it's an impartial as someone who goes and just watches games. They can watch 4 or 5 games in person every weekend. They get around, they get to see things, they get to communicate, they get to speak to coaches face to face, like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Massive. I like that idea.
That could be really beneficial across all age groups from the 16s up to the seniors. And then having real feedback and having just, check-ins on a regular basis and having people feel valued and be part of something. So they're not just like and it goes a long way for their confidence and what they feel about the program and how they don't feel nervous representing the country. They feel like they're part of something
They're ready
making
to
their
go.
differences. Yeah.
Right, ladies and gents, I'm gonna have to go because I have to go to work. James, thanks very much for
Super.
your second appearance. We're gonna have to do this once again because it's always fun and it's always informative. And I hope you guys and girls are perhaps thinking about going to Europe or going to North America, or you do want to improve. Reach out to Sam, reach out to Ozone, Maya Z. Like these are the people that are in the know and they will help you progress your career on. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button. If you are not, stay subscribed and we'll see you for another episode very, very soon. Peace.
Cheers.